Welcome back. This is the People's Voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the People's Voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, we thank everyone who has taken some time to listen to the podcast today. We do understand that you could be utilizing your time to do something else, so we are appreciative that you're taking that time to spend with us. As always, if this information is valuable and you find it to be enlightening and worth sharing, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast to turn on notifications. That way you can be notified when every episode is released. We put out a new episode every Friday, which is heard on all podcast platforms. And then we put a video out on YouTube every Wednesday as well for those who like to watch the podcast. But in any event, we say welcome and welcome to the People's Voice podcast. So today, I want to get into a very serious topic. Not that, the topics that I cover are not serious, but this one is, I consider to be very serious. And today I want to get into the topic surrounding domestic violence. Specifically, I want to talk about domestic violence and its occurrence during the holiday season. So I want to talk about what has been identified as some of the causes of domestic violence, particularly how it spikes during the holiday season. Talk a little bit about some of the signs for those who may have family members that are victims of domestic violence. And then, of course, talk about things that can be done to have a person get out of that situation. So that's what I want to talk about today, domestic violence. And I'm talking about this because, we're closing in on the end of the year here in the United States. This is the holiday season where you have a lot of friends, family, and others get together. And, fortunately, there are going to be and currently are victims of domestic violence. So I figured I'd cover that today. I guess one of the first places I will start is I was doing a little bit of research and I came across a article that was done by the Connections for Abused Women and Their Children. And in this article that they published, what they did was they went through several different factors that can lead to a rise in domestic violence during the holidays. Now, I want to be very clear. None of this is an excuse or should be accepted. But again, what I want to do is by doing this is, give information out to either those who may be in the situation and or those who may know somebody who's in the situation that you can pass this along to. So, but when I go through these, I want to be very clear that these are not excuses or not to be accepted, but these are just some of the factors that have been identified to leading to an increase in domestic violence during the holidays. One of the things that they talked about, one of the first things that they talked about in terms of why domestic violence tends to increase during the holiday season is the financial stress. And the holidays, especially here in the United States, the home of capitalism, it is very much not just celebrated as a time of love and good wishes. It very much becomes a financial competition, if you will, to see who can provide the best, the biggest gifts, the most gifts, things of that nature. And because of that, one of the factors that come along with that is that individuals become financially stressed. It says here in this article that one of the most significant contributors to the rise in domestic violence during the holidays is financial stress. It says the pressure to buy gifts, to host gatherings, meet societal expectations can strain household budgets. This financial burden often exacerbates existing tensions within relationships, making it a trigger for violent behavior. And for those who are in this situation, have been in this situation, know someone in this situation, this is also an opportunity to kind of be an interrupter, if you will. So, and let me be very clear as well. I am not a domestic violence expert. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. I'm just giving information that I think will be helpful for those who are in this situation. But if you're in a household that has that stress already, you have these tensions and you have, some of these issues, you should seek out help. Let me say you should, because I don't want to make it like if a person's in that situation that they haven't. But definitely, if you are dealing with those pressures during the year and you're already dealing with, moments of domestic violence, this financial stress will only create more of a potential violent situation in your household or in your relationship. So this might be a great time for you to seek help, to get out of that situation before it escalates. Another thing that they say during the holidays is that you have the emotional and psychological factors that are involved. Kind of repeating what that first line said in terms of what creates greater stress. It says the expectation to maintain a cheerful demeanor, coupled with stress of family interactions, can lead to heightened emotions. For those already in a volatile relationship, these triggers can escalate into physical violence. So, you have financial violence. You have financial stress, and then you have emotional factors as well. And I don't want to go through the entire article, but I do want to hit on, one or two more of these points. One of the definitely contributing factors, and not just during the holidays, but during the entire year when it comes to domestic violence, is the use of alcohol and drugs. There's no way around that. There are studies upon studies upon studies that show the influence that alcohol and drugs have in domestic violent relationships. But here on this article, again, from the Connections for Abused Women and Children, it says increased alcohol consumption during the holiday season can lead to domestic violence. Now, what it says here is that which is a well-known risk factor for domestic violence, as I currently said. It says alcohol can impair judgment, lower inhibitions, making it easier for underlying tensions to erupt into physical confrontation. So, again, if you know someone who's in a relationship, if you are in a relationship and you know some of these things exist in your relationship currently, or a relationship that has these things, this would be an opportune time for you to seek information, to seek help, or if you know someone, to possibly not intervene, because it can be violence towards you, but at least try to get help for that person to get out of that situation. But increased alcohol is another one. And then, like I said, there's a few more that they go through here. And I won't go through all of them. I think the last one here says the illusion of togetherness. It says the societal emphasis on family and togetherness during the holidays can be a contributing factor as well. It says victims may be more reluctant to leave or report their abusers during this time, fearing that they'll ruin the holidays for their children and others with whom they normally observe the holidays with. So you also have that factor as well about not wanting to, spoil the day, air quotes, if you will. So those are just some of the contributing factors that can lead to increased domestic violence during the holidays. A lot of those are things that lead to domestic violence during the year, but again, as I said, there's often a reported increase during the holiday season. What can be done, right? So what can be done? Well, first of all, before I get to what to be done, just for those who, again, maybe on the outside in, maybe you have some suspicions that something's going on in somebody's relationship. I'm reading an article here from the Women Against Crime, and they kind of posted on their site about some signs, if you will, that are going on in someone's relationship that might indicate that they might be in a domestic violence situation. Now, again, it's such a tough area, right? Because if you have a loved one and you suspect something, you of course want to intervene. And I can't, for broadcast purposes, I can't really encourage that. But at least if you know somebody who's in a relationship and you see these signs, then maybe you can, seek help for that person, or at least try to connect with that person, ask them if they need help. So some of the signs that a person may be in a physical or just a domestic violence or abusive relationship, it says physical signs can be everything from bruises or cuts that are worse than their explanations merit. So, they might have a bruise on their forehead and say, oh, well, I fell down the steps, or, you might see, some scarring on their face or their neck or their arms, and they say, oh, well, cat scratched me, or things of that nature. And I'm not trying to be trivial about it, but these are some of the things that you may want to look out for if you know someone who may be possibly in a domestic violence or an abusive relationship. It goes on to say wearing inappropriate clothing, unusual clothing, high turtlenecks, sunglasses indoors, things of that nature. Now, again, some people do these things as part of their fashion. So, you obviously want to have some other factors behind it. If you're trying to help someone, a history of something that you may know about this person in their relationship. But these are just some of the physical signs. And again, just little things that you want to look out for. In terms of the emotional signs, it says, if you notice that a person's behavior changes, they become unusually quiet or withdrawn. They seem to have high anxiety and apprehension about things, especially when they're away from the person that's abusing them. If they start to demonstrate depression or suicidal thoughts, or even develop a drug or alcohol problem, these could possibly be signs that they're in a abusive relationship. Last but not least, it really goes into changes in activity. You start noticing that maybe a coworker starts showing up later than they usually have, or They start to avoid social activities, especially with friends or family, or they always seem to have a lack of money or access to resources, because part of abusive relationships is control, and sometimes the abuser starts to control the financial resources of that person, which can be a sign as well that something is maybe going on in the relationship that is abusive to that person that you have, that you know of. In terms of the biggest red flag, it says the abuser's behavior may be the biggest red flag. So if you see if you know someone who's in a relationship and you notice that the abusers are always moody or needy, needs money, needs attention, might be due to alcohol, or if the person that's being abused seems to always need to ask for permission to go out with friends and family. You see that the abuser is super jealous and always accusing the partner of something, or always criticizing a partner. These are signs that you want to look out for in terms of the abuser that your friend or family member may be tied to. These may be signs that they are abusive as well. As far as what can you do? And I'll kind of close out from here. Actually, and it's important that it's such a touch and go situation, but it's very important that if you as an individual from the outside see something, say something, but it's really a matter of life and death. Matter of fact, there was an article. Oh no, this is from Channel 4 in Arizona, and a domestic violence non-for-profit organization was interviewed about this. The CEO was interviewed about this, and she talked about some of the things that you can do in the case of trying to leave. And she also talks about how hard it is for people that are in domestic violent relationships to leave. So let me play that, and then I'll close out from there.
By domestic violence, but leaving is the most dangerous time for a victim.
It takes most victims 7 times to leave their abuser. And the first 18 months after leaving are the most dangerous. 75% of domestic violence homicides occur upon separation.
But she says there is help to get out of a bad situation safely.
We have advocates that assist participants in making safety plans, and these are personalized, practical plans to improve safety while experiencing abuse or preparing to leave an abusive situation, or even after leaving an abusive situation.
She understands.
And again, that was the CEO for the New Life Center in Arizona. And, she gave obviously some pretty sound advice there. But, one of the things that I kind of wanted to highlight about the difficulty of leaving in these situations for many people when they find themselves in them. And, in terms of what she said, a plan is huge in terms of being able to get out of a domestic violence situation. It takes quite a bit, and I'm not speaking from experience. Again, I'm just speaking from, the information that I've read about how difficult it is for many people who are in these abusive relationships to eventually get out of it. But I guess the best way for you to help, or if you yourself are in a domestic violence relationship, an abusive relationship, there is a national domestic violence hotline, and that number is 1-800-799-7233. Again, that number is 1-800-799 sorry about that, 799 let me say it correctly, 1-800-799-7233. And this is the hotline for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And there are a ton of resources that you can have access to. And obviously there is someone at the end of the line that is willing to help to get anyone out of a domestic violence, an abusive relationship. And that relationship can be men abusing women, women abusing men, parents abusing children. So it's not just one-sided. Oftentimes we hear about, domestic violence against women, but there are men who are in relationships who have experienced domestic violence as well. So that number is for everyone. But that's my time for today. Like I said, I wanted to kind of, talk about this because we are here in the holidays and, unfortunately someone is going to be dealing with this during this time. So I hope that this information is helpful and useful. As always, if you want to leave a comment, you can reach me at any of the social media platforms. I'm at the People's Voice Podcast on Instagram. Then you can reach me at Trey Evans on all social media. And of course, you can leave a comment on the YouTube page as well. But that's my time for today. As always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute.
I am